Get psyched.
Let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nine Hole Podcast. This is your host, Ian Miller. I've been fortunate enough to have coaches, players, companies on that have influenced my life that I've looked up to on my journey to the big leagues, and today is no different. Today, I am having somebody on, Kyle Attl, the director of professional baseball with Blast Motion. I was fortunate enough to come into contact with Blast Motion. Blast Motion really opened up my eyes more so to the advanced metrics, to the data in baseball. I was an old school baseball player. Once I threw the Blast Motion sensor on my bat and really kind of dove into the science behind my swing, I was able to maximize everything I had, and I was able to get to the big leagues. Kyle, what is going on, man? It is a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Ian, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on and talk about not only your story, but how we were kind of a part of it from the Blast Motion side.
I love it, man. I love it. So just kind of getting to know you a little bit, talking to you and Matt Tanner, man, I got a bunch of things I want to throw at you. But first, I'd love to say hey to Justin Seeger, who was my roommate right back in the day, who was affiliated with Blast. We were just talking about him a little bit before we jumped on here. It's awesome to have, awesome connections in the game, awesome connections, with, technology and devices that really further people's careers. It's fantastic. I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit before I started peppering you with these questions about your products, man. How did you get in to the game of baseball? How did you get in with Blast Motion?
Yeah, great question, man. So I obviously played for a long time too. I'm from San Diego, California. So high school, I ended up playing college at Cal State Northridge, Division One. Played 3 years there at shortstop, and then kind of had a shot at the draft. Ended up getting signed as a free agent with the Washington Nationals. Played one season in pro ball, so I played a short season, and then had an off season to really train. And after my first experience in pro ball, I really had to kind of, I learned that I needed to get better in a lot of ways if I wanted to perform like some of these top prospects. So spent a lot of time in the off season looking for ways I could get better, things that I needed to change and do. And that's where I really got some good, I had some really good experiences. I was hitting in the cage with Tiger Peterson, who's right now the assistant hitting coordinator with the Seattle Mariners. His brother Jock, who's obviously a big name, and then they were working with Johnny Washington, who I believe is with the Angels this year. And they had talked to me about some stuff, and it just totally blew my mind. It was like completely opposite of everything that I had been thought and taught about, and it really changed a lot for me. So I ended up getting released like shortly after that, and I jumped right into coaching. I had a business background, so I was doing like analyst and pharmacy benefits management, which is about as exciting for me as it sounds. And then Blast Motion really called. They saw my website. I was coaching kind of like an academy program, giving hitting lessons, kind of just in the baseball space. And they needed somebody that could translate kind of the analytics that they were measuring to the baseball world, and then the baseball world back to the analytics, because no one was really able to bridge that gap. So that's what they were looking for me to do. We had just signed our first 2 Major League Baseball teams at Blast Motion, and they really needed someone to come in and kind of build it up and be able to communicate both sides, because they were having a challenging time with it. And that's how I ended up at Blast. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I love it a whole lot. It's been a great journey, and we've seen some great stories just like yours come about from our technology.
Man, I love that. I love that. It's awesome to have you here. It fires me up. Before we really jump into it, just wanted to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's stream, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, Cleveland Student Visionaries of the Year, philanthropic leadership development program for exemplary high school students. They are in the middle of their 7-week challenge to raise funds for the fight against blood cancer. The link will be in the description. The donate link is up in the banner right above here. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate the LLS for sponsoring today's stream. So Kyle, man, obviously everybody's got different backgrounds as they progress through their career. Man, what position were you playing? What position were you in pro ball with? D1 baseball. Man, what was your skill set? What was your position?
I played shortstop for probably 95% of my career. Towards the end of it in pro ball, they moved me to second base and played a little bit of third. But I played shortstop for a long time. Evaluating myself back then, I was a defensive guy. I played really strong shortstop. And then I had like intermittent rounds of power and quality hitting, but the consistency at the plate kind of wasn't there for me. And looking back now with the information that we have, some of the things that I've learned later on in my career, I can understand why. So part of my mission, even before I was with Blast Motion, was to try and get some of the information that I got later on in my career to kids earlier in their career so that they could potentially play at one level more than they would have made, or just get to play the game a little bit longer, because it truly is just a wonderful game to play and teaches you so much about life and just a lot of fun.
Love it, man. So obviously the game is consistently evolving, right? Pitchers are getting better. They have the weighted balls, man. They have the throwing programs where they can throw fuzz, right? So pitchers are able to, utilize certain services to grow in the game. It is awesome that there are tools, right, and services available to hitters to grow the game as well. Man, for me, I was old school, right? I would just put the ball on the ground and run, right? When you get to a certain spot where I was in Double A, man, if you hit a ground ball to the shortstop, it's an out, right? So it's like I needed to kind of keep growing, keep evolving my game. So I'm very fortunate that I came across Blast Motion. Man, diving into it just a little bit more. If you like knowing what you know now, right? Being able to break down all of the metrics for me, the on plane efficiency, the power, the rotational acceleration, and the plane score, right? Those were the things that I really focused on, right? And I'll ask you a little bit more about that here in a couple minutes, man. But knowing what you know now, if you could go back, maybe utilize Blast Motion, right? Throw it on the end of your knob. Do you think that it would have taken you maybe a little bit further or prolonged your career, maybe giving you a little bit more consistency?
Yes, I truly believe that. If I had kind of learned some of those concepts and been able to measure it and really focus on what I was trying to do, I think I could have played a little bit longer. Whether I made the big leagues or not, I'm not sure, but I feel like I would have had more success at the plate and gotten to play a little bit longer with some of those concepts. And just to take a step back here, blast motion is a sensor that goes on the knob of the bat. It can be attached to pretty much any bat, and we're measuring swing metrics. So from the start of that swing to impact, I know a lot of times we're looking at exit velocity and launch angle, but we're really looking at kind of the process of the swing. So, I think you're teeing it up for this next question is kind of just like, what would I focus on, or what are some of the things that we should really emphasize? And some of the things that you had mentioned are kind of the best ones right there. So on plane efficiency is just having a nice smooth swing path towards the ball. It really gives you like consistent hard contact. Things like rotational acceleration is like the 0 to 60 time of your car. If you can't accelerate fast enough to hit hard pitching, some of the best in the game, then you're also going to struggle. And then, things that relate to playing like early connection, where you're getting in a good position out of the gate so that, you can go into the hitting zone nice and smooth. So those are some of the things. I think we're going to dive more into the metrics here in a little bit, but learning those fundamentals that we're able to kind of measure and then adding your own personal style to it, I think is really where guys get the most benefit from it. I think a lot of times people think like, oh, this is the way I have to do it. But we're really just giving you some key fundamental checkpoints that allow for some success. And then everybody has to have their own personal style that they're going to work in the game, whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, communicating some of that information. But it can really just kind of tie it all together as a piece of the puzzle.
Oh, I love it, man. That's big time. So just with my kind of my reservations about the baseball data, the technology that kind of surrounded it, right, and presented that baseball data, I didn't want to be a robot, right? So my skill set was I ran fast, I played some defense, right? Like you, I wasn't consistent with the bat, right? Some years I had good years, some years, man, I couldn't get past 260. So for me, kind of opening up and finding out why was so big and so key, man. I was just hesitant because I didn't want to turn into everybody else. I didn't want to be a robot. I thought, dude, if I threw the blast motion sensor on the end of my bat, I would feel like everybody else. I was unsure about it, but what you're saying is fantastic, right? It's just helping you break down your swing a little bit more, right? Show you kind of the science behind it, and then show you maybe where you're lacking, where you can, where you can advance, right? Where you can, get better, man. That's huge. So you guys aren't just in the baseball space. You guys are in softball and golf. Can you maybe run me through that a little bit, especially with golf, man? How many, what percentage of golfers would you say in the professional ranks, in the collegiate ranks, like, is there a whole bunch of people utilizing that? Like I know there is in baseball.
Yeah, so funny. We actually started as a golf company. I think we were a golf company for about 6 to 8 years before we even had kind of baseball turned the corner. So from my understanding, we have about 200 PGA players that use our sensor technology that we've been able to confirm, and a lot more down at the amateur space. So, with golf, I know a lot of baseball players play golf, a lot of coaches play golf. It's a great game. So a lot of golf is tempo, timing, direction, speed. That's kind of where we were at. Our founder wanted to, really up his golf game and try and go pro or pro-am, and kind of found this company and was like, all right, sweet, we have something here. And then we got into baseball. I mean, I'm telling you, we just had the Houston Astros call and they said, we like your golf product. We kind of want that data for the baseball swing, and a couple other teams did too. And for that, it was a no-brainer. We had Major League Baseball teams saying, hey, you guys have the most accurate sensor in the market. You guys have that wonderful continuous data that measures kind of what we're looking for. How do we get that data? So we whipped something together, had our first 2 teams, and then really dove in and created a first-class product for these organizations.
That's big time. And it's when we talk about new products or new data, right? Being open to new things in the game and evolving and adapting. It's like you go in the cage, and I'm not going to name other names, but it's like, different products are huge, bulky. You have to throw on, vests, right? You have to throw on belts. You have to throw on stuff on your arms and your batting gloves, right? All over. But the blast motion sensor is literally just a clear sensor that you put on the end of your bat. You don't feel it, man. It does not bother you when you're using it. I used it in games, right? It was almost a comfort for me to go up there when I was in 2019. We'll elaborate a little bit more on it here in a little bit, but it's like I could go into war with it and not worry about it messing up my swing. I actually relied on it. And it was very instrumental in getting me to the big leagues. Fires me up. I'm already trying to start talking about it. I'm gonna get there in a little bit. So this is the 9-Hole Podcast, man, where I give insight and info to the next generation of 9-hole hitters, man, just like myself. My audience consists of younger players, right? Guys that are grinding to get either to the Division I ranks, D2, D3, JUCO, whatever it is, professional, major leagues, man. They all have aspirations of furthering their baseball game, right? On the same note, man, a lot of younger coaches or coaches with, young kids follow along, right? They try to get insight. That we have a bunch of top tier Division I coaches on here, coaches in major and minor league baseball in here, talking about their stories, what worked for them. So my audience may be, a little bit more amateur as opposed to, the professional ranks that you are accustomed to, man. So if somebody in that age range, maybe, before college, was looking to utilize your blast motion device, man, what is the recommended use? How would you say maybe to jump in and really get acclimated to it?
That is a great question. I think I listened to your episode with Carson Vitale a little bit from the Mariners, and that was an awesome episode because you guys had talked about kind of some of the hesitations that you could possibly have going into using tech, or, from a player's perspective, really not wanting to be a robot, or kind of not really knowing, or, change and all of that type of stuff. So, we're going to be able to give you an enhanced perspective on what your swing is actually going. So some of the ways that you can use blast for this target audience right out the gate is, metrics aside, we have a 3D swing tracer. So you take a swing, you're getting a full 3D of what your bat path looks like. You can see where it starts, how it's going through the zone, what it looks like at contact. So visual 1, super huge. 2, we've got auto video clipping. So in our app with the sensor, you just record your BP round, and we'll clip each swing into its own individual swing clip with slow motion. So before we've even gotten into metrics, you've got 2 visuals that are really nice and easy for you to kind of get going. And then when we get to metrics, a lot of times we talk about our big 3 concept. And this is 3 easy metrics that you can have: 1 early in the swing, 1 throughout the swing, and then 1 at impact, to really kind of understand what's going on. So the first one is going to be early connection. That measures the relationship between your body tilt and your bat angle as your swing starts. So the single point in time that the load stops and the swing starts, if you were to freeze frame that, we're going to look at the relationship between your spine and your bat angle. And you're essentially looking for roughly perpendicular. That way, when the bat rotates around the body and stays inside to go through the hitting zone, you're already in a good position. The second one is going to be our attack angle. This is, do you swing up, down, or level at contact? I think we'll get into this, but matching the incoming pitch, Ted Williams said it way back in the day. There's a lot of hitting concepts around it. The ball's coming down. I need to match it with my bat coming up through the zone. Attack angle is going to provide that metric. So you're starting in a good position. You've got good direction with your attack angle. And then that last one is going to be bat speed. You want to have a nice, you want to have good bat speed for your level of play. You want to try and increase it. But we're not talking about maxing out here. We're making sure that you've got this controlled violence and you're tracking that throughout the swing. I think one thing we talked about too, the value of this is you might be able to see something that you can work on, you can improve, but tracking it over time can be really valuable too. Hitting, you got to play in a lot of games. You play for a long time. Slumps are going to happen. So if you can know that my 3 metrics that I focus on are in range and I'm feeling good, and then when I'm not feeling good, I've been collecting data and I can see that, early connection's a little off. My attack angle's gotten a little bit of steepness. Now I can go ahead and I can do drills or find my routine or at least have that information. Looking at the tools in my toolbox, looking at blasts, I can say, okay, this is what's changed a little bit. And then how do I address it? Am I going to do a drill? Is it a mindset thing? Am I going to chase different pitches, hunt different pitches, stuff like that? So that's some of the value that can be provided right out of the gate. Not only the player development side, but the tracking side of it and staying calibrated is something that we like to say. Finding that rhythm every day of where you fall and just making sure your swing path and everything's there.
It's big time. That's big time, man. And at least for me, and not, overwhelming the youth or the younger players. It's like, man, when you log in, right, it's an app on your phone. You put it on your bat and you can track everything on your phone. It can break everything down for you. It's not like too in-depth, like it's not too difficult to understand, right? It's explained to you well. The graphics, man, seeing that 3D swing, the path, man, you could rotate it, right? You can see it from, dude, it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. We have a question here in the chat. ANM1128, appreciate you. Is there a particular age you think it would be good to start utilizing this? So like I alluded to, I have a younger audience, right? People that want to get, to the big league level or the Division I level, right? Is there a particular age that you think, maybe 10, 12, like is it like a working out thing, right? If you start working out too young, it could hurt you maybe in the future. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just using a baseline number, I'm going to say just about around 10 years old is probably an opportunity where you can start using the sensor. Now, you're going to also make sure that you target, what that athlete needs. So for a 10-year-old, a lot of times it's intent. You want to make sure that they're taking a good hard swing at the ball. They're not necessarily worried about like mishitting it or getting stinged. You really want that effort to be there, because if you do take a full intent swing, more than likely that rotational pattern or that swing pattern is really going to be a lot more ideal. So if you are using it in that fashion, showing the kid the bat speed number and saying, hey, whatever your number is, let's try and get it every time, can help drive that intent for that younger athlete. And then you can kind of track it over time. But with the younger kids too, you talk about we're being like a part of the whole, but we're not everything. As the coach, you can keep the numbers faced towards yourself, especially if you're a parent or a younger coach trying to learn just as much as you are teaching. You can look at what they're doing, understand these metrics, and then start teaching the concepts through some of our drills. We have a training center that has some basic self-organization and constraint drills that really help a lot of athletes and improve the numbers. So even though you're showing the kid bat speed, you can also be learning as the coach, having that screen facing it yourself, and then kind of grow and be a couple steps ahead of the hitter that you're trying to work with. So the minimum swing speed that we have for the sensor to register bat speed is 30 miles an hour. We see most kids around 8 or 9 be able to tip that, if not 10, just to be safe.
Love it.
And as you get older, you'll progress and get more concepts, just like you would as you progress in the game of baseball with any part of it.
For sure. So with all of the metrics that you guys have now, all of the data that you are able to track and being able to, provide that back to the hitter, and allow him to understand and really kind of buy in to what, your data is telling him. Do you guys have any metrics maybe down the line that you think you'll introduce? Or are you guys, you guys do a great job of presenting the data and allowing the hitter to understand the swing. Is there maybe something down the line that you think, we didn't think about that before, or, maybe somebody's not doing that yet? Is that maybe something that might evolve later down the road?
Yeah, I think we'll get a little bit more evolved as we get going. I think what we've done a really good job with is the way that we present our data and the way that we translate it. So we have three categories that make up our Power Six metrics. You've got power, contact, and consistency. You go back, I'll give Justin Seeger credit for this. Backyard baseball, Pablo Sanchez. You're looking at the back of his card. What are his power numbers? What are his contact numbers? What are his speeds? So we put two metrics in each one of those categories. So on the power side, you've got bat speed, which is like your raw power. You've got rotational acceleration, which is like your efficiency. So what's that engine running? How quickly do you accelerate into that peak bat speed? On contact, we've got attack angle, so we have good swing direction. On plane efficiency, so you have good swing path. So when I'm looking at just contact, I've got those two metrics. And then the consistency side, we have early connection and connection at impact. Starting in a good position, making sure we at contact in a good position. And if you do those things, you've got a really good opportunity to not understand what your swing's doing, how you can improve, but give it a good opportunity to track over time. Now, this is targeted more towards a younger audience. We do have a pro solution that our MLB teams use. I mean, they're looking at like everything. We're talking hinge angles, commit times, all this type of stuff at the highest level. So maybe some of that will come over, but I think education is the most important part, because I think even when you start using tech, and you talked about this on your some of your other episodes, particularly with Carson, but like you had a little bit of hesitation to the change. You needed to dive in. So giving you something that you can actually use for the first time, understand, and then have an action item to go off of is something that we provide the most value for. So we're really trying to keep it simple. We're trying to keep it effective and have like some sort of call to action based on what you're capturing, instead of just giving like more.
Big time, man. So you alluded to, you touched on it right there, like my hesitation to buy in. Having Carson Vitale on, the Mariners major league field coordinator, just kind of, touching on my story a little bit. Man, I did, let's see here, like 2 or 3 times in AA. I think I was going on my third go in AAA. Couldn't get past the 260 mark, especially in AAA. Couldn't get the ball out of the infield. Honestly, I would put the ball on the ground and run. That's great up to a certain point, and then everybody gets really good, and the ground balls are out. So I had just won a ring in the Arizona Fall League. I was the oldest dude in the Arizona Fall League. Won a ring there. It was in the 9-hole. And then I went to winter ball. Ended up making a couple bucks, right? That was the first time that I ever experienced like making money in the minor leagues. That was the first time that I ever experienced, big crowds and stuff. Had some success there, right? Another like 260s, like it's successful, but it's not enough to propel you, forward to the big league. So I came back, I was a little bit frustrated, man. And I was like, dude, I am 27 years old and I'm going to be in minor league spring training again. Like my dream isn't to be complacent. My dream isn't to be a good minor league player that doesn't hit below 250. You know what I mean? My dream is to be a big leaguer. Like I went to Carson and I said, dude, I need help. What can you do to help me? And he printed out some data that wasn't from Blast and just said, dude, this is the graph of the stuff you're swinging at. This is your hard hit contact. You're swinging at stuff out of the zone too much. You're not doing enough damage in the zone, right? And you're kind of taking like a downhill approach. You're swinging down to put the ball on the ground, right? I wanted to be safe. When I swung, I wanted to put the ball in play, right? I didn't want to swing to miss, right? That's kind of what I had in my head, man. I grew up being able to just put the ball on the ground and run. That's how I was always taught, right? So going into 2019 was really where my career changed. And so Tim Laker and JD were the two major league assistant. The big league hitting coach and the assistant big league hitting coach. They took me in the cage. Carson threw the blast motion sensor on, and I downloaded the app. And he said, "Dude, I really do think you should buy in. I think you should buy into this. I think this could really help you." Not knowing any of the metrics, right? I was very hesitant. I was, the old school, no data, man. It's just going to complicate stuff. Man, I threw it on there and we immediately started like getting to work. So I touched on it earlier. We really wanted to focus on the on-plane efficiency. We really wanted to focus on the power, right? I think you guys measure it in like kilowatts and stuff. I wasn't generating any force. I wasn't using my legs. The rotational acceleration, right? I really wasn't doing much damage when I made contact, and the plane score. Dude, so those were the four metrics that I focused all of my attention on. I sent you some clips, man. I'll be able to kind of incorporate that, in the shorts and kind of piecing it all together. I can't wait for that. But I really bought into that, right? I started going into battle with it in games. And it really just like opened my eyes to everything. That year, man, I think I had probably 5 home runs throughout my whole minor league career. And just in using the blast motion sensor for 2 months in spring training, like I hit 11 home runs that year. That year I hit 11 home runs. I got traded. I got an opportunity to get traded. I got to the big leagues and I was just blown away. I remember that there would be times right around like the halfway point, 2019, where, I'd start slumping a little bit. I'd start falling off. And, we would have a hitting coordinator in town, Salt Lake City, Utah, Salt Lake City Bees, man. And we would just throw the blast motion sensor back on. So for me, it was beneficial because I didn't need to necessarily rely on it throughout the whole entirety of the year. It was a supplement to my swing, right? So when I started being able to understand what the on-plane efficiency was, when I started to understand where I generated my power, what the rotational acceleration meant, being on, the plane score, I was able to then take that and implement it myself into my own swing and how I played. And dude, it I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. It empowered me to almost like play my own game as a better version of myself, if that makes sense. So like I am like so grateful for Blast, for you guys, and kind of what you've done for the game, and just being able to kind of unlock some stuff, at least for the 9-hole hitters like myself, dude, kind of elevate my game and take it to the next level. It was unbelievable. So you mentioned major leaguers utilizing it. You guys have deals with teams and stuff. How many major league teams, what percent of major league players would you say are like utilizing blast motion?
So from a team perspective, we work with about 94% of the league. So if you want to do the math on how many teams use our technology, whether it's the minor league, major league, whole thing, which is probably something that I'm really proud of. We've created something that, there's a lot of value in, and we have all the organizations using it. We've got a lot of our top colleges and academies across the United States. So we have a lot of customers relying and using our tech. And that story that you told, man, that's what I live for. We are a tool in the toolbox to help you develop the entire thing. You've got a screwdriver in your toolbox, but you can't build a whole house with just a screwdriver. It takes a lot of stuff. So we're a quality tool that you absolutely need. Another metaphor that I really like is like we're kind of like the weather app. We tell you what's going on. We're not going to tell you exactly what to wear, but if you've got a good idea of what it looks like outside, you can take the best version of yourself kind of into the game. So if you go on Twitter, and especially during spring training right now, you see big leaguers using our technology. Ohtani with the Dodgers, he was doing it last year with the Angels too. Mookie Betts with JD Martinez out there. You've got Machado in photos of it too. So, you see all these guys using the technology on their own. The Pete Alonsos of the world. You just go on Twitter and you start seeing this stuff, especially in spring training, especially in the off season, because it's a way to check in. What am I doing? Where am I at? Where should I go? And it's not something that you like rely on all the time, but it's something that you regularly check in and use and get a lot of powerful information. So stories like yourself, or it's literally like my favorite thing to hear is when someone says I use this, it really opened my eyes to this concept. I was able to make the connection, and then boom, I was eventually able to get better. I know this is targeted towards like coaches and players too, but we go to ABCA as Blast Motion every year, and we get head coach comes up from some school in some state, and they're like, hey man, my entire team had high early connection, and we fixed that, and we had 4 dudes break their home run records. Like they're seniors or juniors, and they hit more home runs in 1 year than they did the entire other time. And we went from 7th in the conference to 2nd. And when you have just something to give you the edge or get better or grow into a better type of player or coach, that's what we take the most pride in and have been able to show and do. So that's the stuff that we see. And I like that we're used at all levels, man. Like I know I manage the pro business and I work on that pro side, but I always keep in mind everything. I keep a pine tar at my desk all the time so I can like smell and like not forget what it's like to be a player or a coach, and just remember like we're trying to serve everybody as we go about our stuff. So I love your story, and I love anything that has to do with, using our tech to get better.
That's awesome, man. That fires me up. It's like when I first kind of dipped my toe into, the blast motion world and what it was able to kind of open me up to. I wasn't just going in there trying to hit, double digit home runs, right? The idea behind it was, man, I need to do a little bit more damage. I just need to be a little bit more like dangerous. That's the word, man. I need to be a little bit more dangerous where when I did hit the barrel, like I could do damage, not necessarily leave the ballpark, but like, dude, my average exit, however you want to say it, like if my damage in 2018 and before was, maybe a double in the gap, whereas where I understood the swing and I was able to buy in, like my damage was, dude, I could do some damage. You know what I mean? It's incredible there. So it's not like I was going into this trying to swing out of my shoes and just hit home runs. Dude, that came with like understanding what everything was behind it, man. So that's big. I just wanted to throw that in there. You said at the ABCA, maybe some coaches will come up to you and just be mind blown at, what their players were able to like evolve into and maybe unlock, right? Those are the words that I was looking for earlier. But do you see, is it pretty prevalent at the, the collegiate level? Are you doing deals with teams there, or is it, you just doing deals, with pro ball teams and major league teams? Our college teams are obviously using it, but do they have to do that on their own, or are you guys doing partnerships with them?
It's a great question. So any team that has 12 or more players, it might be 15, but I think it's 12. You get a team package, and we have customer success reps. And one thing that we do really well at Blast is all of our customer success reps and our account executives that manage these territories, they all played college baseball or above. So they get it. They know the game. They know what you're going through as coaches. They've been there as a player. So anytime, no matter what level you're at, you buy a package for that whole team, you've got a resource to really help you implement this technology. We're used in most Power Five schools, all the way across the country. I think we have like over 300 colleges, maybe 400 colleges now. And then you think about the academy side too of it for the facilities, getting it in at your training facilities so that you can track players. They can know and learn as they're progressing too. And I think a really important part of this too is, if technology is being used at the highest level, and that's where players want to go, they're eventually going to have to use that and understand it. So getting them exposed to it early and in the right manner can play a huge difference. As you're in those early development years, 11, 12, 13, 14, that learning concepts and what you're trying to do early on, when you get older, you're going to have that like Kobe Bryant effect. Like you're just going to be ahead of where you would have been if you waited till you were 16, 17, 18 to start implementing this stuff and figure out where it's going on. And as you said, man, it's like the little things make a big difference. So if you can take one little thing so that you can start doing more damage or feel more confident at the plate, or you know, I was working with one dad and his son, and the dad thought the swing was like kind of off, and the data helped us feel that like, hey, it was there. It was more of like an approach and where he was standing, like he was just too far away from the plate, didn't want to get hit. This is like a kid, So you're thinking about the younger stuff, but it can gear you in the right direction or prevent you from like going down the wrong path too, just by having an enhanced perspective of what's going on.
It's big time, man. It's big time. It blows my mind. I'm trying to communicate it to my audience. It blows my mind. Teams, parents, families will spend tens of thousands of dollars on some travel ball, right? But you can get your sensor for a fraction of the price and probably, gain just as much, if not exponentially more, positive outcomes just by kind of diving into the data a little bit and breaking that down. When we talk about that data, when we talk about being able to communicate that from what you see and what that data is telling either the coach or the athlete, like, are there specific coaches or people that are trained in speaking baseball data, that baseball data language, that maybe try to like communicate that and verbalize it in a certain way that maybe an athlete can understand? Are there people that are specialized in the baseball data or the blast motion data for these teams and these coaches?
Yeah, I think at a lot of levels, there's people who are, versed in the tech. And this is a good opportunity to say that at Blast, we have a free certification course. So you go to our website, you find certification, or you just Google Blast Motion certification. Completely free course, seven videos. It's a 38 question test. You get a certificate, and that really shows you what we're measuring, how to use the apps, best practices in collecting to kind of give you that holistic approach. In organizations at any level, we've seen this because we have a lot of experience with people that implement tech. And when there's one person that focuses on the tech and everyone else just kind of does their thing, that's the only resource for it. But the people that take a resource and they kind of train everybody so that we're on the same page in like three basic main categories, like main pillars, where this is what we're focused on, this is what we're measuring, and this is how we're going about it. And then again, everyone can put their style and their coaching cues into it. You got coaches that are high energy, you got coaches that relate to players really well. There's coaches that provide pressure and everything in between. And you get everybody on the same page wrapped around these like core concepts and fundamentals that we're either measuring and collecting with tech or we're teaching just from the verbal side as well. That is what you're going to have be the most powerful. We always emphasize start simple and then grow, because as soon as you can show a player that you're there for them and what you're doing with that technology is providing feedback and, gives them something right away, that's a lot better than trying to do the whole thing and not really have a direction. Athletes, I know as yourself and me too, like if you show up to the field like Carson did for you or whatever, and you've got someone who spent time and said, this is what you're doing, this is how we can get you better, this is what we see, and here's our action plan, like that's going to fire a player up a lot. He's going to be like, all right, let's go. Like, let's get better. This guy cares about me. So that's going to be a lot more success in it. So there's certifications for a lot of the tech out there, but I think with us in particular, we do a really good job of tying the technology to what's kind of already in the good baseball space around coaching, using your legs, using the body to generate power, having the bat go in a good direction. And now we're just able to quantify it. So that's some of the best stuff that we see. And I think early on in baseball, like it was like tech versus old school, and everyone was worried that the tech was just going to take over. But I would have been more worried about someone who knows the game and has been in it for a really long time, and then you teach him some tech. Like that guy's powerful because he can relate to players and be on the field like nobody else. And then you give him this power of just like a little bit more of a perspective on what's going on, using whether it's numbers or visuals or just what's going on. Like that person is going to be dangerous because he has everything. Time in the game is something that you really can't replace with anything else.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Just some of the stuff you're saying, man, just it blows my mind. Obviously, like I alluded to it earlier, the data that Blast Motion presents to the athlete, to the coaches, it's like you are able to break it down. You're able to understand it a little bit more than throwing on some specific vests, right? Spending a couple $1,000 on certain equipment. You have to be, in the cage for you. Can't be out on the field, right? It's versatile. It's great. It's fantastic. We have another question in the chat here. Is this something that you can purchase in a store or online? So obviously, Kyle, you alluded to, teams with 12 or 13 more can get, team deals, team packages. Is this something that an individual can go online and purchase? Is there a website you recommend just checking out?
Yeah, great question. So blastmotion.com, right from our store. You can purchase our sensor on Amazon. And then we do work with some of the bat manufacturers that like bundle bats and stuff like that. But your best option is going to be blastmotion.com or Amazon to get kind of that best price. Usually our sensor retails for $150. Look out for a code. You can always usually get it for $125 or something like that.
That's big time, dude. Yeah.
Amazon, you'll have it tomorrow, baby.
$125 to potentially change your career and kind of propel you forward and maybe unlock something and educate you on something that you had no idea about. That's literally what it did for me. Is there anything big coming out, I should say, in the pipeline, maybe, in the future that these guys could get even more excited about that don't already know your products? Is there some stuff, maybe some collaborations or some ideas that you have to evolve the game even further than you've already taken it?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this. I'm really excited. We've been working on like what we're calling Blast 2.0, where we've got a new app that's much more like a user guided experience where we're going to have not just the numbers and some of our visuals, but we're really going to break down each metric with the visual. So when you take a swing, you'll get some sort of visual representation of not only what that metric is, but what you're doing. And then pulling together like an automated report. So every week or whenever you wanted to pull this report, you could get a breakdown of each category, where you fall, percentage of swings in the target range to really track progress, have it be automated. So we're really excited about that. one thing that I think we do a really good job of at Blast is we have an advisory board of some of our best customers at every level. People that use us are always in contact, and we take their feedback and we put it in. We really want to give what the customer wants. And you said back then, like, we're not a big vest to strap on. You don't have to calibrate. Like, all you have to do is you put this little sensor on the knob of your bat, and you don't even know it's there. We're collecting those swings and providing value. So we're trying to do that same thing. We're trying to fit into the game of baseball instead of changing it to have to fit into us. So that's what I'm most excited about. It's going to be a really good app experience with that automated reporting. So if you are a coach or you're a player, or you coach a team, run a facility, like imagine if you had just like automated hidden reports in your inbox every Friday, boom, here you go, ready to rock, breakdown of what's going on, what to focus on, what's changed. So that's what I'm the most excited about. Save coaches time,
Yeah,
help make players better. So that's what I think we're the most excited for. And then, in the space, you never know what could happen. So
for
I
sure.
might be some big things else too, but we'll see.
For sure, man. That sounds just like a hitting coach's dream right there. If they truly are all bought in and really do care about propelling maybe their hitters as far as they can go. That's something that a boon, BOON. That is a great word. It is a boon, a blessing, a great tool to have in the toolbox, man. That's fantastic. I remember just being in the minor league spring training and 2019, man. When the day was done, we'd take it off of our bats and we would put it. We had each charger, right? We would have our own individual chargers. We come in the next day, take them off the charger, throw them on the bat. You don't even notice it, man. Obviously, like as you get into the higher ranks of professional baseball, using the wood bats, you can customize the handle, you can customize the knob, customize everything. And it's like, dude, I was so not nervous, but I'm like, hey, dude, I'm not open to this stuff. It's gonna mess with my bottom hand. I'm gonna feel it. None of that, man. It's absolutely fantastic. Again, Kyle, thank you so much for your time. I got one more question for you before I let you go. I'm so grateful for you being here. So grateful that you're schooling and providing a great education to my audience right here. The 9-hole, right? So this is obviously the 9-hole podcast, right? Where I just try to provide insight and just stories and ideas maybe that I wish I had when I was growing up, when I was in these guys' position. So I speak to the next generation 9-hole hitters, right? Underdogs, undervalued, undersized. Man, when in your mind, obviously you were a player, D1, professional. When you think of a good 9-hole hitter, right? What traits or qualities come to mind when you think about a good 9-hole hitter?
That's a great question. A lot of times when I think about a 9-hole hitter, it's kind of like a second leadoff. It's somebody that can hit for a little bit of power, makes contact, is fast, is going to kind of give you that quality at bat, and might be like a younger kid that in the next year kind of gets a little more size and can do some damage in the lineup. I mean, I spent plenty of time in the 9-hole myself, and it was a big motivator to keep getting better. But I also realized that I could get on base, and then the rest of the order can keep hitting me on and moving over. So, a 9-hole hitter to me it can really be anything, man. I think you just own it and you keep getting better and try to do some damage at the plate and run fast.
Big time. That's big time, man. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. This is Kyle Attl, the director of pro baseball for Blast Motion. Changed my career. I am so grateful for Blast Motion. Thank you, Kyle, for being here, man, and just answering every single question that myself and my audience had for you. I look forward to seeing, the game-changing stuff that you guys are doing, man, in the space. Thank you again for being here.
Ian, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for listening. Hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
Pleasure, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will catch you guys back here again tomorrow. Take care, everybody.